All right, let's get into the trade deadline first, because also excited to pick your brain about this, because I thought it was very fitting that the first year I kind of got off the Colts, they do this.
I know.
And after years and years of me and you leading that Colts charge and them disappointing us in different ways, we had the Phillip Rivers year, we had a Matt Ryan year, the Anthony Richardson experience, and then they do this year, and I just keep laughing about that. But they go out and make a huge trade for Sauce Gardner, which led to me already making a St. Elmo's pun, to the Colts from the Jets for 2 first-round picks. Robert, what do you think about this? Colts perspective
there's
first.
So many different layers to this, right?
Okay,
I mean, the first thing is Chris Ballard for years and years and years. Every single Colts fan is always so frustrated. He's like, do something. It's just like the poke you do something meme. And he goes out, not only does he do something, takes a massive, massive swing. And so that part of it is fun. It's just a GM who I think has been pigeonholed as this guy who has been very measured and is typically pretty conservative. A lot of the moves that he makes to go do something like this, I think speaks to how strange a position the Colts are in overall. So that part of it I love. The other side of it, I get why the Jets did this, and we can get into why and the benefits of it. But the first response is, didn't they just give him like a massive contract with this regime? Because it's a first-year GM, but they just paid him. And so those are like just knee-jerk first reactions on either side. Those are the first places my brain went.
Yeah, start with the Colts. I think some of the criticism with Ballard is, he built the whole team with a bunch of Bs and B minuses, and he pays them, and then he values those guys so much. He did the DeForest Buckner trade a couple of years ago, that was kind of, which has been a good move. I actually think in due time, I think the 49ers are drafting Kinlaw with that pick. But they really needed corner help. Xavier Howard, before he retired, and he retired also mid-show as I was doing a show with Matt Harmon, like literally after 20 minutes after I made fun of him, and then he retires, and I was like, geez, were you listening? But even just, that's been my biggest kind of blemish with this Colts team so far. I know what happened on Sunday with the Steelers, but that was kind of a Steelers funky magic, the turnovers. They're still moving the ball. This team can still run the ball, all that stuff. Is the corners. It was just like, oh man, can this team hold up? I like the safeties. I like Lou Anarumo. I think they can stop the run. They got some cool blitzes, but I don't know if the corners can hold up in the playoffs. So let's get Sauce, who was, I think still considered, even with the down year last year where the whole Jets team kind of gave up, I still think he's a top 5 corner. It's a lot. Like the only trade that comes to my mind is Jalen Ramsey trade a couple years ago when he got traded to the Rams. That was 2 firsts and a 4th. And, this is kind of similar. A very talented player. I'm very excited to see him in this scheme. But like you said, it's a splash move. They're pushing it. The AFC's wide open. The NFC's wide open. So might as well push it. And then you said this about the Jets. You understand why they're kind of full-blown fire sale, but kind of fire sale-ish. But where do they even go from here? Like, what are you feeling about the Jets in the first year of Aaron Glenn?
I think this is one of those moves when you saw the returns on the trade, then it starts to make sense from the Jets' perspective. Like, think if you're Darren Moogie in this moment, your season's coming off the rails. You are a 1-win team. You're going to be picking at the top of the draft. Anything should be on the table in terms of which path you take from here. If Chris Ballard calls you and says, I'm going to give you 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner, you almost have to do it. And I think that's what's so crazy about this from the Colts' perspective is this is clearly too much to give up for Sauce Gardner. I don't really care in this moment because I'm having too much fun, but it is too much to give up for Sauce Gardner. The players who are available for 2 first-round picks at this stage of anything are Micah Parsons and players of Micah Parsons' ilk. And so if you're in Moogie's position here and you have a 1-win team where it's like, no matter what, we're going to have to retool a lot of stuff this offseason. No single player on the current makeup of the New York Jets is worth 2 first-round picks. And so I think you almost have to do it. So I think that speaks to how much of a godfather offer this is, in my opinion, more than it actually speaks to like Sauce and his value to the Jets. Because if you're in Moogie's seat, I just think it would be irresponsible to turn down an offer like this.
I think that's a great way to look at it. I think comparing it more to the Parsons trade is more than anything. It's like a Parsons, who's I'm sure we'll talk about him a little bit on the show, is a top 5 non-quarterback in the NFL. Easy. Top 3. Yes. Top 5, I would say. But let's go with that. Sauce, I just said top 5 corner not top 5, non-quarterback, and they're going for the same price. And for two teams that are contending this year, Packers, who will probably be picking in the 20s somewhere, and now the Colts, who will be picking in the 20s somewhere. So yeah, I totally am with you. It's kind of like when Adams got traded from the Jets. It's like, yeah, he's a good player, but gotta do it. Like, if you're going to throw a price at me like that, and you get this regime that are kind of trying to make it in their image too. I have no idea what to make of the Jets, because there's been moments where I'm like loving their run game and loving some of the stuff, but I think they're very, very frustrating, obviously with the record and everything. But like you said, it's kind of a godfather offer that they have to do. But let's go with it. Oh, AD Mitchell got thrown into this trade.
Interesting. Okay.
I actually really like that for the Jets. That is a
great like free roll if you're the Jets, because he's very talented. I think one of the only reasons I think there are deficiencies in his game that have contributed to him not like being a part of the Colts plans in the way you might think with a player that has his talent level. But part of the other side of this is the Colts have the deepest, best receiving core in the NFL. That's the reason he can't break into this thing. I'm not sure Arian Smith is keeping AD Mitchell off the field in the same way that Alec
Tyler Johnson
right now. Yes.
Tyler Johnson has been one of these players that's like, I try to like frame him to people. It's like, I like Tyler Johnson. Me, Nate Tice. That should tell you what you need to know about how high Tyler Johnson is. It's like he's a scrappy, useful, dirty work guy. But I love that. That's a great dice roll. They need receiver help. Like you said, Garrett Wilson. I like the tight ends. I like Mason Taylor and stuff. But they need this. It's like who else are you going to put out there? Arian Smith ain't doing anything. He's just a speed guy that can't catch the ball. I think Matt had a great stat that is like yards per route run is just like, it's like minuscule. It's like less than a half yard or something of that sort. It's like a quarter of a yard. But yes, no, I actually really like that dice roll. Let's move on to the other trade that happened. Rashid Shaheed from the Saints, who, I mean, his name has been out here for weeks and months, it seems like, going to the Seahawks. I did not see how much for yet. But what did you think about this with the Seahawks? Torrey Horton had a nice little game the other day, but this is reuniting Clint Kubiak with Rashid Shaheed.
That was my first reaction. We're in the studio right now, and so I looked at Derek and I was like, poor Torrey Horton. Like Torrey Horton has this really nice game, and now Torrey Horton's getting pushed aside. But I think if you're the Seahawks and you're in, a similar-ish position to the Colts, I think there are a lot of similarities to the seasons that they've had so far in the arc of those seasons. And you think, looking around, why not us? Torrey Horton is an idea that hopefully down the road will turn into a vertical threat within your offense. Rashid Shaheed currently today on November 4th, 2025 is one of like the 10 most explosive players in the league. And so I think adding that gear to your offense, when for right now, it was really like one or two splash Torrey Horton plays and then whatever JSN was giving you down the field. So making sure that we are definitively checking that explosive pay seems like field stretching option. I completely understand it if you're the Seahawks. I mean, this has been one of the most explosive passing games in the NFL. I mean, they throw the ball down the field better than anybody right now. And what better player to add to that mix than a guy with Rashid Shaheed's skill set?
Than literally one of the best deep ball guys in the NFL, one of the most explosive players in the NFL, has offensive familiarity, which I really like too. There's not just an idea here. It's actually like, oh no, there's proof of concept that this works. And also Shaheed, and speaking of Colts receivers, Alec Pierce is in this group too, of speed guys, downfield guys that have added to their game. Like Shaheed is a 3-level guy now, can actually run a full route tree. It's not I'm not calling him the best route runner in the world, but solid now, as opposed to just speed. And this offense needs it. This is why they signed MVS originally. They draft Torrey Horton, but Torrey Horton I really like. But again, more down the road and more as an auxiliary player. It's a 5th-round rookie. Now everyone's Puka Nacua. It's like you're already. I think they're already winning with what Torrey Horton has already shown. Cooper Kupp's been banged up. They've had some other receiver injuries too. So this one makes all the sense in the world. You knew the Saints were selling him. They kind of like were like Chris Olave. Never mind. Not Chris Olave. Not Chris Olave. Rashid Shaheed. Yeah. You want this guy. So I really like this fit. Totally makes sense for me. I don't know what the exact price is yet, but I really did like this trade for the Seahawks. Oh, Saints are receiving a 4th and 5th rounder. Thank you, Stone.
Okay, that's a decent chunk of change for the Saints for a guy that was on an expiring contract. What I like about that, I'm so glad you said this, him adding layers to his game. Because I think some people would look at the current state of the Seahawks passing game and look at like some of the advanced numbers and what this has been, they're number 1 in passing DVOA. The Seahawks are right now. So it's like, is pass game help really what you need if you're prioritizing your needs? Well, if you look at like a little bit more granularity in those stats, they do a great job dictating early down play action when they're throwing the ball out of heavy sets. And that allows you to kind of build the entire plane out of JSN. But if it's 3rd and 7 in the playoffs against the Rams, it's going to be really, really important to have a more multifaceted receiving core in those drop back moments. So it's like, this is them seeing ahead of the roadblocks they're going to run into if they're going to try to win the Super Bowl. And I actually really like that.
It's what we talk about all the time, or used to talk about all the time, is the ability to pivot. Like, all right, you're doing this. Is it just a valid option? You don't have to be the best in the world at it, but is it something you can actually do and the defense has to honor it, or you can take advantage with the defense or offense if you're going on the other side and doing it that way? Like, that's the thing. Rashid Shaheed doesn't have to go for 4 catches, 110 yards to make this worthy, worthy of the trade. It's also the boost effect he has on everybody else. JSN's been a revelation as a deep ball guy to me.
We'll talk about it here in a second.
I'm sure we'll talk about JSN on this show. But now, okay, what we want, when Kyle Shanahan came into the Falcons, and what I thought Dan Quinn did a really good job, is that he had every coach talk about kind of their ideal guy. And then he made a joke that, I think we talked about this years ago. He was talking about his favorite route, which was a burner, or whatever you want to call it, like a post and an over. And he goes, someone asked, one of the scouts goes, who's the ideal guy to run the post on our team? And he goes, well, Julio Jones. And he goes, and then someone goes, well, who's the ideal guy to run the over? And he goes, well, Julio Jones. And he goes, it's a gift and a curse, though, because I want to open up the play for him, but I also want him in both spots. That's what Shaheed can do. JSN, yes, he can run both things very well, but now Shaheed can be the deep ball guy and opens up all the intermediate space for JSN where he actually really cooks. So
it's so funny you say that, because that exact play is what I had in mind. Is like these 2-man play action concepts where you have a lid lifter and then an over the middle of the field option. Now JSN has to be both, essentially. And so now you allow him to be more of a middle of the field, like in space sort of option, which even if he can do everything, that's still where you see the best versions of him. And so this actually does make a lot of sense, even if the Seahawks offense is thriving right now.
Yeah, I love this. You know, maybe if they could get a right guard next year, then we're really cooking. But yes, I really like this from the skill players. They got a really fun team. I love the tight ends. The backs. There's so much going on. Quarterback's pretty good too. I don't know if you know that, but I've been partial to Sam Darnold over the years. I don't know if you knew that, Robert.
I am aware. It's been a lot of a lot of the quarterback discussions this year are coming up, Nate. That's what I would say.
There was a couple of weeks there where I was like, even looking at some of these rate stats, like for this show, for the MVP discussion, I'm like, wow, a lot of guys here that you're like the dog who caught
the car right now. You're just like sitting there like Sam Darnold's good and you don't know what to do with it. Like, what do I do with my hands?
I don't. Yeah. And the guy in New England too. I'm like, well, this was early.
That was also referencing that as well.
Yes. Going into the other one, I really like this trade for the Eagles too. This would be the next trade. Jaelan Phillips went to the Eagles for a 3rd. I thought Jaelan Phillips to a contender was kind of how I kept putting it for a couple of weeks now. I thought the Chiefs maybe should have been in it. No brainer. I don't think there's really much to add. Eagles need to sell. They have a couple edges available. They have some, just because they have some vets and young guys, and the Eagles needed this desperately because there's some patches in the defense right now.
I think at so many different levels, skill set wise, they need that. Even with Nolan Smith, when you eventually get Nolan Smith back, it's a little bit of size on the edge. That was something coming into the year when you look at it, the way they built that room, and they kind of were trying to build it in the aggregate, and they had a lot of length, but not a lot of size on the edge. It was a lot of like skinny, long guys. And so like, all right, you look at Jaelan Phillips. Jaelan Phillips has been hurt for a good chunk of his career. I totally understand that. There are only a few guys when I have stood next to them and had a conversation, I was like, oh, that person is an alien. Myles Garrett is in that conversation. Aaron Donald is in that category. Jaelan Phillips, when you look at how Jaelan Phillips is built, it is truly wild. Like, he is one of those guys. And so bringing in somebody like that to give you a little bit more size on the edge, I think makes perfect sense. Also, he's just like a notoriously good guy. Like, just built the right way, wired the right way. And that's always a question with these things. It's like, you're going to bring in a guy midway through the season. Like, how much buy-in are you going to get from this person? And I think that's just inherent to who Jaelan Phillips is. But also, did you hear him yesterday talking about playing for Vic? He's like, I would rather be nowhere else. He's like, he's my favorite coach ever. Like, I cannot, because he played for him in Miami. And so I think in every way,
and that's when he was blowing up. Intangible. They had a little stretch there before he got hurt where they were tearing it up. Tearing it up. Remember they played the Chiefs in Germany, I think it was?
That's right.
And it was like, And it was actually one of the like lowest points I think in the Chiefs offense with Mahomes there, where it's like they literally could not run the ball, and Jaelan Phillips was a big part of that. Sorry to cut you off. That's a great point, because when Vic left, remember all the DBs like Ramsey and they're all like,
and so it could go either way. Like that's
Wicked
one
Witch is
like,
gone. Like,
yeah,
what?
he played for him. Did he like playing for him? And the answer appears to be yes. So
yes,
that is a good thing.
Huge point. That's the same thing with Shaheed and Clint Kubiak. I'm sure Clint Kubiak's like, yeah, I don't even care if Rashid likes me. I love it. No, but I great point about the size thing, because the Rams game, the Eagles won that, was where that really stood out to me. Whereas the Rams kept running outside zone, and they had no muscle. They were just getting shoved by receivers and tight ends. And like, that was the game that kind of stood out in my mind, where they just didn't have that edge presence. So great point about the weight and the kind of the different body styles. They've needed it. I've been trying to figure out how I stack the Eagles defense, because I like a lot of the parts of it, but I just like, there's just a couple spots where I'm like, keep my eye on that.
It's going to be a question of how the corners shake out, right? I mean, it's going to like, how do they eventually do this? Like, is it going to be DeJean outside? If it is DeJean outside, can he hold up in a way that you feel good about? Like, how much Michael Carter are we going to get in the slot? How much DeJean in certain packages? Like, it kind of reminds me a little bit, and we'll have this conversation tomorrow on our show, about Kyle Hamilton and the Ravens, and like being able to kind of move Kyle Hamilton around, and it creates stability at multiple different positions. Like, that's the benefit of it. Is Cooper DeJean that sort of player? Like, if you move him outside, do you suddenly get to a place where you feel more stable at both corner and outside and slot corner? So if that's the case, if they get better in two spots, or at least find stability in two spots, plus adding Jaelan Phillips, where are you really worried about this team? And I think that's just a different feeling than I've had watching them for the past month.
Well, that's why I like DeJean as a prospect so much, was I thought he could be a good starter at three spots: slot, safety, and outside corner. That's because that's what he was able to do at Iowa. And so that's where, the what's the phrase? The weak link system, weak link. That's really what it is. Okay. Even if he's an A+ slot, because I think he is, and he's a B+ outside guy, a B outside guy, it's better than the D that they've had out there for the rest of the year, because Quinyon Mitchell's a stud. So it's just like that, again, is just going to help out, especially how they play. Guys are so isolated on the outside. Like, you need guys that can at least be tangible out there. They don't have to be the best players in the world. So no, that's a great point, kind of like boosting everybody else there on the back end. All right, we're getting to the kind of the filler traits. Cowboys acquire Logan Wilson. This is just...
You do it because you have to say you did something.
and everyone saw what those linebackers look like on national TV. They're like, oh, okay, it's that bad. Yeah. And you're like, yeah, it's that bad. It's that bad that we're trading for a Bengals linebacker right now.
This is the Jonathan Mingo trade from last year. This is Jerry pretending like he was doing something that mattered. Then it's just not going to matter whatsoever. So good for those guys. I love that
he hinted at it. He was like, yeah, I made a trade already. It's like, okay, Jerry. Okay,
he can't help himself. He said the same thing with Mingo last year. He's like, oh yeah, we traded for somebody who's going to immediately help us. And it's like, okay. Yeah.
He's had like, what, 3 catches since he's been there? Ran like 10 routes since he's been there.
If Logan Wilson can't crack that Bengals linebacking core right now, how excited should you be about adding Logan Wilson? That's
the Bengals right. No, we have to play our rookies. No. Like, that's how bad they were. Like, no, we have to play these rookies. We can't have you out on the field. Oh, the Bengals, man.
It's why my excitement about whatever the Bears did on Sunday is like extremely tepid, because it's like let's just wait a beat and see what it looks like against a team that has a pulse, because that is not the case with the Bengals defense right now.
I had some Bears fans, like, I've been, mostly like some good stuff, but I had some Bears fans kind of go, why'd you call that double 40 burger well done? Don't you mean it's tasty? Do you like well done burgers? And I'm like, because it was burnt to a crisp. Do you see those defenses? Like, that wasn't like a fun 40 burger. That was just like disgusting display of defensive football for 60 minutes. Well, 60 minutes, I guess. You want
your team to destroy bad defenses if they're going to be legitimate. It's a box checking exercise more than it is I think this is indicative of where the team currently exists. And so that's kind of where I'm at, is like, you're going to shred, the Saints, and you're going to shred the Bengals as their current state of the Bengals. Fine. That's great. Like, I don't know what that necessarily means, because they played this happens so often covering the NFL. And this, whatever happened most recently is all that matters. And so
Island games and most recent, that's
it. The game against the Ravens 2 weeks ago, where they could not run the ball and the offense looked like it was struggling again, inconsequential. They destroyed the Bengals, so the Ravens game a week ago does not matter anymore.
Well, that's the Broncos offense. You've seen the journey,
it's the best example.
The takeaways from the Broncos offense against the Cowboys defense. It was like, they figured it out. Look at this team. And it's like, yeah, it's kind of routes on air against it. And then they play the Houston Texans defense first in DVOA. And it's like, yeah, this is a little tougher. Maybe we haven't figured it all out.
It's funny. I think this is a larger conversation, but it does feel like with a lot of these units, we have reached that binary where it's like, okay, against the bad teams, you can look pretty good. What do you look like against the good teams? And it's almost two separate experiences. It almost feels like that's happening more often now than I can remember it happening for one reason or another, because it feels like there's tons of examples of that. Maybe it's a product of how many bad defenses there are.
Yes.
Maybe that's what it is. And I think the distinction between good and bad defenses is almost as pronounced as I can remember it being. Maybe that's the answer, but I do feel like that general idea has come up a lot this season.
I think offensively, there's a lot of young quarterbacks, which is part of it, and quarterback injuries. And then defensively as well, like what you're just saying, I think there is a lot of bad out there. Charles has been kind of going on about this for about a month now. He's like, the bad teams feel worse right now, than they usually do. Like the bad feels really low. And then also there's just a lot of good, but not overwhelmingly elite teams. So it's kind of just, it feels a little off. So just kind of speaking what you're saying there, that it's just like the bad feels real bad this year.
And I think that offensive coaches around the league, and we'll talk about some of them on the show, I think the level of offensive coaching just league wide right now, I think is really, really, really good. And so if you are a defensive coach or a defensive system, and I had this thought while watching the Seahawks Washington game last week on Sunday night, we rewatched it for the show we did, the Hangout Radio with Derek this week. The Seahawks have made their defense impervious to manipulation through various different avenues, right? Like their thought is, we'll play nickel to everything. We're not going to allow you to dictate what personnel groupings we're going to be in. We're going to be in this shell all the time where you have no idea what sort of coverages we're running. Like no matter what you're doing, it's not going to incite a single response from us in any way. Washington's defense is the opposite, where you can manipulate them in so many different ways. And so I think, again, that binary of are you easily manipulatable and are you not matters, because so many 75% of the offensive coaches in the league can manipulate you if given the chance. And so I think those two buckets, you really realize the stark difference between them on defense.
Yeah, and not even just OCs. And I know I just talked about the young quarterback play, and there's a certain quarterback we talked about on Sunday where I was saying, I think we've gotten spoiled a little bit. You and I talked about this years ago, where the floor has never been higher for quarterback play, but it's also never been harder to be elite at quarterback play. That I think is kind of OCs and also GMs. I think the floor is higher than for GMs than I've ever seen. But there's still some bad ones. Don't get me wrong. But I do think that there's not as many, fishes at the table as there used to be. There still are, but there's not as many, where I used to think it was 50-50. Now it's more like, there's a select few, but there's a lot more just solid to good. I think the same thing with the OCs. And I think so just the young guys have so much more Rolodex to pull from and more data to look at and they're just more in tune with that stuff now. And I mean, I'm glad you say it, because that's how I feel as well. There's not as much bad.
The exact right point is that the data out there and what you can pull from, like there's just an awareness of that kind of stuff. And even just like the traveling of information, like you can just be so much better at figuring out which plays work and which plays don't, because in 10 seconds, you can pull up your PFF Ultimate or Catapult or whatever account and be like, what are the 40 explosive plays from this week? Which ones of those can I use? It takes 10 minutes of work when it would have taken 10 hours of work a decade ago.
It's so true. I mean, what's publicly available? I mean, if you just look at, next gen stats and everything, it's just, I'm looking at that stuff. I was like, if I was a quality control coach with this was a superpower. Like, because the stuff that we do now, or with PFF charts, all that stuff, it's really quality control work, what my old job used to be, where opponent scouting isn't, like you said, I could pull up all the red zones, I could pull up all the explosives, I could pull every time that they're in this personnel grouping against this defensive look, against this defensive coverage. And it's like, yeah, there's a couple wrong in there, but at least the gist of the cut up is unbelievable. And so that's why I think ideas just spread so fast. I mean, this isn't just freaking football. This is life right now in the world we live in. But yeah, I think football is really just a great example of that. So it's really interesting to me, because I just see ideas spread so quickly now, way quicker than it used to be. It's always a copycat league, but it's a quicker copycat league now. Last trade, receiver, Jakobi Meyers, who, again, another guy that's been dangled out there, then taken off, then dangled, then taken off. Gets traded to the Jaguars, who had a Travis Hunter injury. If Jakobi Meyers can just catch the ball, he's already an improvement. So the Jaguars for a 4th and 6th round pick. I thought Myers was bookmarked, earmarked to be going to the Steelers. I thought for weeks, because I thought that was just a perfect fit for everybody. But goes to the Jags. What'd you think about this one? I totally understand it, but I'm curious what you think.
We talked about the Jags on one of the shows we did this week, and I made the point that it's kind of jarring how competent Parker Washington looks at times, and how much he sticks out within the offense, because he's just doing the things he should be doing.
That's it.
And Jakobi Meyers is essentially bringing you all the stuff that you would want from Parker Washington. He's just a better version of that.
Yep.
And so on that front, I totally understand it. It was funny. One of my first responses, just knee jerk, was, man, it's a lot they've invested in receiver over the last 2 years. And then Barnwell immediately just does the whole list of everything they've spent on receivers in the last 18 months. He can always do the dirty work for me.
Yeah.
But this reminds me a little bit. You've had dinner with me before. My wife makes fun of me a lot, because when I order for the whole table, we'll do the whole order, and then whatever the agreed upon collection of stuff we were going to order, I always add one more thing. Because it's well, at this point, we might as well throw in the carrots. Why wouldn't we? That's kind of how I feel about the Jakobi Meyers trade for the Jags at receiver. It's kind of come on. At this point, why wouldn't we just throw a 4th rounder to the Raiders for Jakobi Meyers?
You guys want peppers? Peppers sound good too. Yeah, we'll throw those in there as well. Yeah, that reminds me of we were in Arizona for the Super Bowl, and then I took the picture of you. But I said it's like watching Shaq work in the paint. That was you ordering food. That's exactly it. Let's just throw a little hook shot in there. Just maybe a little drop step right here. That's Jakobi Meyers. At this point,
in for a penny, in for a pound. That's the Jags receiving core and the resources they've spent on it.
I did like it because of, if I've just looked at this in isolation, because I do like the skill set. I've always liked Myers. He's just a useful, I'm glad you brought up Parker Washington, because he's useful. He's going to play in the league for a decade, and he's going to be one of those annoying guys that catches first downs, and everyone's just like, this guy's still killing us? Oh my God. It won't be on a night game, because the AFC South doesn't get night games or island games. They get the 1 o'clock.
London. He'll be doing it in London, if anything. If you're up early enough, you can see what Parker Washington is as an NFL player.
People in England think Parker Washington's the best receiver in the NFL. There's going to be so many Parker Washington jerseys in 22 years, That's exact. He's going to be Joey Cora for Mariners fans from the 90s, It's just this guy that's only a couple people can reference. But I remember him. He used to kill us. But no, I get it. I like it because he's sure-handed. He does a lot of things well. He can line up outside, can line up inside. He's pretty good against zone. Smart player, a good blocker. So I liked it because he does stuff that they've needed. But like you said, it was just, or Barnwell pulled up. It is a lot into the receiver room, but Travis Hunter's hurt and probably going to be hurt for a while, it seems like. So they needed somebody to be running these routes.